Let's take a closer look at how another state is handling its vaccine rollout with Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson. Great to see you, Governor. You heard Governor Justice say that West Virginia's plan could work anywhere. His state is about #1 in vaccine rollout with well over 80% administered. Your state has administered about 60% of the vaccines that you have. What's the holdup?
Well, thanks, Martha. And I do congratulate West Virginia in a great job in their rollout. And I think the message is that every state has to have flexibility, do something that works for their population. We've actually done many of the same things they did in West Virginia, which is utilizing our local pharmacies because we're a rural state and they have access to our rural community. Secondly, we have utilized the National Guard. One thing you learn quickly, bring in the logistics experts if you're going to manage the vaccine distribution. So we've continually increased ours about 60%.
You talk about the National Guard. Aren't they just helping with PPE and contract tracing? They aren't really helping with distribution, are they?
No, that's correct, although they might down the road when we start doing some of the more mass distribution efforts. But right now they're in the logistics planning of it. Now, let me make a point that's very important. If you want to be efficient and just get all the vaccine out very quickly, you go to your population center and have a mass distribution effort. That is efficient, that gets it out. But you have to be equitable about it as well, and you have to balance efficiency with equity. We're a rural state, and we don't want to do it just in our population center, and that slows the rollout somewhat. Not as efficient, but it is fair because it gets it into the minority populations, the rural areas of our state. It's more fair, and that's what we're trying to accomplish.
But where are the vaccines you already have? And why aren't they getting into the arms of your people in an equitable way, which I know Governor Justice would say his are?
Well, ours is moving that direction. We are working in our rural communities as well as in our urban centers. And whenever you're at 60%, you're asking where's the 40% of the vaccines? When we receive them, the first dose is in people's arms within 72 hours. That's our goal. That's what we did last week. Secondly, you have to allow for the second dose. And when you do that, you're always going to have some inventory there to make sure that you have the second dose that's available for those that received the first dose. And that's important because that's the FDA approval. You don't want to jump ahead of that, and you don't want to just have one shot. You want to have the booster shot as well that the FDA requires, and that allows for some excess inventory that exists.
And you were on the show last summer and urged President Trump to invoke the Defense Production Act to increase testing capability. Do you think Joe Biden is doing enough? Do you see any change thus far?
Well, in terms of the vaccine distribution, it's been seamless. And I was delighted that we had a 14% increase in vaccine supply last week. This is going to be very, very important for us. They said they're going to invoke the Defense Production Act. I don't know the details on that, but anything they can do to speed up the production, which they're dependent upon our supply chain, our pharmaceutical manufacturers, and so they're leaning on them. But this is not just a state shortage, a national shortage, but a global deficit in supply. Thank goodness we have that partnership, which is good, with the federal government, and President Biden and his team is working to assure that partnership and not tear it apart, which I'm very grateful for.
And Governor, I want to make a kind of a sharp turn here to the state of your party, the state of the GOP. You were in the House for about 6 years. You recently said your party is going to have to do some soul searching about Trump's influence going forward. But it's just been about 3 weeks since there was a siege on the Capitol. You know what President Trump did during that period. It almost seems like the party has forgotten this. House Leader McCarthy goes to visit President Trump, former President Trump, just 8 days after he left office, refusing to say Joe Biden that the election wasn't stolen. 45 senators saying impeachment is unconstitutional, censuring those who say otherwise, and others refusing to say the election was not stolen. It seems Republicans have already searched their souls and are backing Donald Trump's Republican Party. What do you think about that?
Well, I think there's a lot of different voices, and the Republican leadership has said very clearly, including Kevin McCarthy, that President Trump bears responsibility for what he brought the people to the Capitol. He brought them to Washington. They went to the Capitol. He bears some responsibility there.
And yet he goes to visit him in a smiling photo opportunity.
The Senate trial is going to refocus what happened on the attack on the Capitol, and it's going to call all Republicans to take a position more clearly. President Trump has helped build the party in the last 4 years. I hope he does not help to destroy the party in the coming 4 years. And we need to have a level of accountability. We also need to make sure that we don't tear ourselves apart as we go into the midterm elections next year and beyond that.
And one more question about a member of Congress, a new Republican member of Congress, Trump loyalist Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's long embraced conspiracy theories like QAnon, voiced support for executing Nancy Pelosi. Is she fit to serve, and should she be on the Education Committee?
Well, that's, first of all, the people of her district elected her, and that should mean a lot. They elected her, and she's going to run for re-election, and she'll be accountable for what she said and her actions. And then,
given her history, is she really fit to serve?
I'm not going to answer that question as to whether she's fit to serve because she believes in something that everybody else does not accept. I reject that, but she's going to stand for re-election. I don't think we ought to punish people from a disciplinary standpoint, a party standpoint, because they think something a little bit different. We have got to make sure that we don't divide our party. I'm more troubled by someone going in and opposing Liz Cheney because she took a different position than many others in the party. That's the kind of thing that tears our party apart. We need to not start primarying everyone just because we don't like how they handled things during the last 2 or 3 weeks post-election.
But
let's
Governor,
focus on
you
our
say
ideas
you shouldn't go after someone because they think of something a little bit different. She believes in conspiracy theories, that they're pedophiles running Washington. That's not just a little bit different.
I reject that, and I would not vote for her. I would not vote for her. The second question is, should the House of Representatives make a disciplinary call on her? I'm not going to get in the middle of that. They're going to have to make that judgment. But, you know, whenever you have a broad diversity of the party, you reject the extreme elements. It's not mainstream GOP, and that's what we've got to get back to. We got to have a regard for those people that supported Donald Trump. Because they have a message, they have a concern, but at the same time, we don't want to gloss over the terrible actions that happened at the Capitol. We need to hold people accountable for that. That is critically important.
Okay, thanks for joining us this morning, Governor. We really appreciate it.